They burned the Capitol, the White House in flames. A young nation, barely 3 decades old, stood on the brink of collapse not against a rebellion, but against the most powerful empire on Earth. This was not a war the United States was supposed to survive. In the opening years of the 19th century, the United States stood at a crossroads, politically independent, yet still economically and militarily fragile. The nation's sovereignty, though secured after the American Revolutionary War, was continuously tested by global powers that did not fully respect its neutrality or strength. Across the Atlantic, Europe was consumed by the massive upheaval of the Napoleonic Wars, where empires clashed for dominance. Though the United States sought to remain neutral, its position as a trading nation made that neutrality almost impossible to maintain. Caught between two giants great, Britain and Napoleonic France, the United States found its ships harassed, its goods seized, and its sailors taken. Both sides attempted to restrict American trade through policies that disregarded U.S. sovereignty. But Britain's actions were especially provocative. The British Royal Navy, desperate for manpower, enforced the practice of impressment, boarding American vessels and forcibly removing sailors. Many of these men were American citizens, yet Britain justified its actions by claiming they were deserters from its own navy. For Americans, this was more than a diplomatic dispute, it was a direct violation of national dignity. Economic pressure mounted as British blockades restricted American commerce, especially with Europe. American farmers and merchants felt the strain as exports declined and markets shrank. In response, the U.S. government attempted economic measures such as the Embargo Act, but these policies often hurt American businesses more than foreign powers. Frustration grew, and many began to argue that economic resistance alone was insufficient. Within the United States, political divisions deepened. The nation was split between those who favor peace and those who believed war was inevitable. Leading the charge toward conflict were the war hawks, a group of young, nationalistic politicians determined to assert American strength. Among them were Henry Clay and John C. Calhoun, who argued that war would defend American honor and potentially expand U.S. territory. They believed that conquering British-controlled Canada would be relatively easy and strategically beneficial. President James Madison found himself under increasing pressure. Though he understood the risks and unprepared military, a weak navy compared to Britain, and internal divisions, he ultimately concluded that action was necessary. On June 18, 1812, the United States declared war on Great Britain, marking the beginning of a conflict that would challenge the nation in ways it had never experienced before. The war unfolded across multiple theaters, each with its own unique challenges. In the north, American forces launched invasions into Canada, expecting quick victories. Instead, they encountered strong resistance from British troops and their indigenous allies. These campaigns were plagued by poor leadership, lack of coordination, and inadequate supplies. Early defeats, such as the surrender of Detroit, exposed the weaknesses of the American military. A critical factor in British success was their alliance with Native American tribes. Among the most prominent leaders was Tecumseh, who envisioned a unified indigenous confederation capable of resisting American expansion. Tecumseh's leadership and strategic insight made him a formidable opponent. His alliance with the British strengthened their position in the Great Lakes region, leading to several key victories against American forces. However, his death in 1813 at the Battle of the Thames marked a turning point. Without his leadership, indigenous resistance weakened, and American expansion into the Northwest accelerated. While the land war struggled, the naval war offered moments of triumph. The United States Navy, though smaller and less experienced than the British Royal Navy, achieved a series of unexpected victories. American warships demonstrated superior design and skilled crews, winning several one-on-one engagements. Privateers privately owned ships, authorized to attack enemy vessels also, played a significant role, capturing hundreds of British merchant ships and disrupting trade. Control of the Great Lakes became a crucial aspect of the war. These waterways were vital for transportation and supply lines. Battles such as the Battle of Lake Erie in 1813 allowed American forces to regain control of key regions. The victory secured supply routes and enabled successful operations in the Northwest, shifting momentum in favor of the United States. However, the global context of the war dramatically shifted in 1814 with the defeat of Napoleon Bonaparte. Britain was no longer preoccupied with European conflicts. It redirected its military strength toward North America, launching a series of coordinated offensives. British strategy focused on key targets: the Great Lakes, the Atlantic coast, and the Gulf of Mexico. One of the most dramatic moments came in August 1814, when British forces advanced on Washington, D.C. American defenses collapsed under the pressure, and the British captured the capital. They set fire to major government buildings, including the White House and the Capitol. The destruction symbolized both British power and American vulnerability. Yet, rather than breaking the nation's will, it strengthened resolve. Shortly after, British forces turned their attention to Baltimore, a vital port city. The defense of Fort McHenry became a defining moment. Over the course of a relentless bombardment, American forces held their ground, watching from a nearby ship. Francis Scott Key witnessed the American flag still flying at dawn. Inspired, he wrote the poem that would later become the Star-Spangled Banner, embedding the event into the national consciousness. Meanwhile, diplomatic efforts were underway in Europe. Negotiators from both sides met in Ghent to discuss peace. The resulting Treaty of Ghent, signed on December 24, 1814, effectively ended the war. The terms restored territorial boundaries to their pre-war state and avoided addressing many of the original causes of the conflict. Despite this, both nations were eager to move forward, unaware of the treaty due to slow communication. One final major battle took place. In January 1815, the Battle of New Orleans. American forces, led by Andrew Jackson, faced a powerful British army. Through strategic positioning and defensive strength, Jackson's forces achieved a decisive victory. The battle had no effect on the treaty, but its impact on American morale was enormous. It cemented Jackson's reputation and provided a powerful narrative of triumph. In the aftermath of the war, the United States experienced significant transformation. Nationalism surged, as citizens took pride in their country's ability to withstand a global power. Economically, the war encouraged self-sufficiency. With trade disrupted, American industries expanded, laying the groundwork for future industrial growth. Politically, the war marked the decline of the Federalist Party, which had opposed the conflict. The perceived disloyalty of Federalists during the war, particularly at the Hartford Convention, damaged their credibility. In contrast, the Democratic-Republican Party gained strength, leading to a period of relative political unity known as the Era of Good Feelings. However, the consequences for Native Americans were severe. The loss of British support and the weakening of tribal alliances led to increased displacement and loss of land. American expansion accelerated, setting the stage for future conflicts and policies that would further marginalize indigenous populations. The War of 1812 ultimately did not produce a clear winner in traditional terms. No significant territory changed hands, and many of the issues that sparked the war remained unresolved. Yet its deeper impact cannot be measured in land or treaties alone. It reshaped the identity of a nation, strengthened its independence, and demonstrated its resilience. It was a war defined by contradictions marked by both failure and triumph, division and unity, destruction and growth. It revealed the weaknesses of the young republic but also its capacity to endure and evolve. In the broader arc of history, the War of 1812 stands as a crucial chapter in the ongoing story of the United States, moment when the nation, still in its infancy, proved that it could survive, adapt, and assert itself on the world stage.